Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel, where I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And first of all, I'd just like to note something quite interesting. For 114 years, there had been no full-length English translation of Alexandra Kollontai's 1909 book, The Social Basis of the Female Question. Two days ago, there is one. So it needs to be edited. On that same day, the 100-year curse of sharing oxygen with Henry Kissinger was finally broken. I claim full credit. Translating Kollontai's book is what finally did for Henry Kissinger. I'm sure of it. You're welcome. Meanwhile, in case anyone didn't notice, the snack before dying, the humanitarian pause that the US and Israel were willing to agree to under extreme pressure in Gaza, is now at an end, and the carpet bombing has resumed. Israel has issued expulsion orders now for Khan Yunis, which, it's worth noting, is in the south of Gaza. In the media they call these evacuation orders, but that's bullshit. It isn't an evacuation order when the person issuing the order is the danger from which is necessitating evacuation. When the order is based on the fact that the person issuing the order, the party issuing the order, is going to kill the people who received the order if they don't get the fuck out, that's not an evacuation. They're not getting away from a fucking earthquake. They're getting away from the regime that issued the order. That is what's called an expulsion. And now expulsion orders have been issued for Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, which is the place that they've been herding everybody together over the past month and a half now. So, very clearly, genocidal intent is very much present, and they are going to go whole hog unless the US is stopped. And so, there's that. Now, I've got a couple of things to look at for today. I'm trying to decide, chat, and you can help me, between Xander Hole, who says that Thought Slime posted cringe again, and apparently Xander Hole is going to explain economics to us, which I'm sure that cannot possibly go badly. And there's also Has went on Tim Pool for a debate. Now, here we have the cumulative property of jabronis. When you have two jabronis on opposite side of a debate, one of them must somehow come out looking somewhat better. This is why when fucking Caleb Muppet goes and debates Vush or somebody, it's like the one time when Caleb Muppet actually looks like he knows anything about what the fuck he's talking about. So, I mean, that may be happening, or they may all just fall on each other. I mean, it is two of the world's most insecure men. Damn, that fucking Haz's beard looks fake in that picture. So, chat, what do you reckon? I think I might start out with Haz and Pimtool. We can always move on to Xander Hole afterwards. Either of the... Oh, well, that's actually... Oh, wow, that's bloody long. Oh, fuck off.
You know you always get a fair deal on wheels. And 3 square...
Wait. Now there's fucking pushing ads to... This is the second time today. I had this fucking transphobic ass ad on YouTube when I was doing a language stream hyperpolyglotting this afternoon, and now it's some sort of racist stream, some sort of racist ad from the Daily Wire. Like, this is what they've decided to put on now that they've managed to defeat ad blockers, at least for the moment. Come on, uBlock Origin devs. Sort this out. This is fuck that this is showing up on here. Fuck these people.
You say that it's the communists who have infiltrated the system, but all evidence and experience on my part shows me the opposite is true.
The system has infiltrated the communists?
It's the system that has infiltrated the communists. Can you name a single Communist Party member who is in office right now?
I can... that is not the point.
No, that is the point.
Welcome to the first culture war on Tenet Media on YouTube. Thanks so much, everybody, for hanging out. We're going to have a fun one today. We're hanging out with Haz Aldin and Trevor Loudon. I'm pronouncing that correctly?
Yep,
Trevor Loudon?
that's correct.
And we're...
Who the hell is Trevor Loudon? Anyone know, chat? Looking this guy up. Kiwi... he's Kiwi Fash.
We're going to be talking about, I guess, MAGA communism and classical liberalism, so this should be very fun. Haz, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, this should be an absolute fucking train wreck.
My name is Haz Aldin. I consider myself a comedian, a
purely unintentional.
A geopolitical analyst, and a political philosopher. And I...
Wait, he considers him... See... He's not even accidentally a geopolitical analyst or philosopher, but he is an accidental comedian. I find it fascinating that he apparently thinks he's capable of being intentionally funny. Like, literally, I've seen tons of this guy's footage. I never would have gotten the impression that any of what he's doing was meant to be funny. Like, are we gonna see some, like, fucking comedy out of him? Is he gonna be like, fucking woke airline food is bullshit?
I technically coined the term MAGA communism, although it started as a...
I wouldn't take credit for that shit.
...kind of meme within my community.
Yeah, the Nazbols.
I run a show called The Infrared Show, which you can find on YouTube. And, I'm here to present and, I think, give a proper introduction to what MAGA communism is all about.
This would be the first time he's managed it. So far, though, actually, so far, it's just fast shit, and then he occasionally says communism. But I think that actually is what MAGA communism is. If he's going to try to make it seem like something else other than that, it'll be interesting to see him make the attempt.
Wow.
All right, well, it should be really interesting, MAGA communism. And I think you also the thread that we'll get into about how Marxism is not woke.
Right, yes. I also plan on releasing a book soon, which is going to be...
Wow, will he accidentally, like, convert Tim Pool either away from white nationalism or towards Marxism by the idea that being woke is anti-Marxist? Probably not. Tim Pool is many things. Ideologically consistent is not one of them.
A kind of a complete overview of my philosophical foundation.
Do they not have the fucking heater on in the Tim Pool compound? What the hell is he wearing this
My
jacket
views,
for?
Right on.
including that thread that you mentioned.
And you work with Jackson Hinkle?
Yes. I work very closely with Jackson offline, coordinating.
I'm still very curious why it is that Caleb Muppet is now like very subtly sidling away from him into the bushes.
Also discussing these ideas and so on. So yeah, I would consider Jackson's views as the same as mine. Pretty
Right
much.
on. Cool. Should be fun. Trevor, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, look, my name's Trevor Loudon. I'm a New Zealander, but I live in the United States. My special...
Yeah, he's too shit for New Zealand, so they sent him over here. This is
is really exposing and exploring communism. I've written several books. I focus a lot on the Marxist influence inside the Democratic Party.
the Marxist influence inside the Democratic Party. Wow, those would be short books.
Inside the government, inside the social movements. And I have a blog, trevorloudon.com, and a website, keywiki.org, which has got 160,000 files of leftists, communists, socialists, radicals.
So if anyone's looking for, a little something to, I don't know, sort of DDoS in Minecraft, this motherfucker's trying to dox comrades.
From all sorts of areas. And so I consider myself, I would have started out as a pretty much a classic liberal, but I have a very strong social conservative bent.
Yeah, it's a fash.
And a very strong national security focus.
Well, right on. Let's just, we'll get started then. What is MAGA communism?
Okay, well, let's see him try to define it this time. I haven't heard him manage it yet.
MAGA communism began as a meme, and the origins are actually interesting.
No, they aren't, actually. Yeah, I mean, it's fash people. It's fash people trying to do fash shit and call it communism. I mean, the origins are about as obvious as the name.
So around a few months earlier last year, so on August 2022, there was this big meme going around. I don't know if you heard about it, the Dark Brandon meme.
Yeah.
Remember that? And it's this kind of... We took it...
Yeah, it was pathetic.
It as a kind of like, this is an example of some neo-fascism, because we regarded the support for the neo-Nazis in Ukraine by the Democrats, the increasing crackdown on classical liberties as an example of not the only...
This motherfucker's talking about the crackdown on classical liberties. I don't think he's ever said a word about Stop Cop City.
Only conduit, but a significant avenue for the growth of fascism in the United States. So the Dark Brandon meme, we saw it as an acknowledgement of that. So
well, see, and what's hilarious about this, I mean, this is exactly why you really have to pick these motherfuckers apart. Because actually, I mean, there are things that he said that definitely do kind of fit into the growth of fascism in the U.S. Interestingly, of course, he leaves out Cop City. He's talking with a couple of fucking white supremacists. They're not going to give a shit. He's not, and he's trying to attract white supremacists, so he's certainly not going to pretend to give a shit either. But, of course, the thing is, there is a split in fascism. There are a couple of splits in fascism. And he's on one side, and the Ukraine is one of the major fault lines in fucking international fascist movement. You got pro-Russian Nazis in the world, you got pro-US Nazis in the world. The US, particularly in Latin America, funds huge amounts of Nazis. One of them's ended up in winning by default in Argentina, which should be interesting to see how long that motherfucker lasts. They don't take kindly to this shit in Argentina.
We created this counter meme. It wasn't like that intentional, but it was spontaneous, called, well, if you're gonna have your Dark Brandon, we're gonna have our MAGA communism as like a counter, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, this is about as much depth as there is to it. It's just bullshit.
Is it seriously meant to convey communist ideals?
No.
Yes, I think one of the reasons I don't focus too much on and it's confused a lot of people, the meme aspect of it.
It's like literally the only thing you focus on.
Because for me, I don't actually see a clear distinction between meme and something serious. I think that
Because you're a jabroni, and you have shitty ideas. So the idea that there might be depth, that you might want to think these things through, that doesn't occur to you.
actually comedy and ironies and things like this convey and express truths more profoundly and correctly than something kind of stoically formulated in a dry kind of
This is him explaining why he hasn't actually got a definition. I mean, other times when people have tried to get him to define his terms, he calls it definition mongering. He basically, I mean, it is just this complete. He thinks it's a power move, but it's basically a way of just pointing out that he's a very jacked and empty shirt.
Purely formally consistent way.
So let's just start here then. I guess
the most insecure man on the intertubes. I'm just looking at the people he's in the room with here. And I would say that is an open field. I don't know that I would put my money on any, although, I mean, we got a couple of the front runners here, that's true. But I don't know. We'll see.
I hear MAGA communism, it sounds like you're saying you're voting for Donald Trump and you want a communist system of governance or social order.
No.
Yeah, that's right. He doesn't want communism. You got it there. He doesn't...
MAGA communism has little to do with the person of Donald Trump, besides him as a kind of mascot. We see Trump as a meme, basically. But the truth of MAGA communism is that we believe that 2016, for the first time in decades in the history of the United States, introduced real political distinction.
Okay.
And a Schmittian sense of enmity.
Here he goes with his favorite Nazi legal philosopher. I mean, I wonder if he's going to misuse his definition of partisan.
Because for decades,
Again.
the Democrats and Republicans, that was not really a political distinction.
There's still...
Agreed.
It was a distinction on the basis...
It still wasn't. I mean, that is why the Democrats had to obsess over Russia and all this other bullshit, because they simply were not going to meaningfully oppose... They were not going to do anything to stop Trump doing all the major atrocities he did. Because, I mean, they were in a position, they could have blocked funding for ICE. They could have found all sorts of procedural machinations to block his judicial appointments. They could have done all sorts of things. They were kind of cool with all that shit. They didn't actually do anything to stop him, despite, the things that they could have actually done in one way or another to stop him. So, because they're actually sort of cool, which is why all those things are still going on now. The family separation, the concentration camps, the fucking wall. The fucking wall is still being built. I mean, all of that shit is still going on. Like, Trump's disastrous COVID policy is still Biden's disastrous COVID policy. There was no fucking political distinction. It was just a bunch of liberals who declared themselves #the resistance and then just shat all over anyone doing any resisting.
Basis of a mutual recognition of the fulfillment of the same interest. And miraculously, somehow, this kind of clown, Donald Trump, I mean, let's remember this guy's from The Apprentice. I mean, it was very funny he got elected, let's be honest. He kind of drove these two camps insane. You see the same George W. Bush Republicans and the good old Democrats, they suddenly are united in the face of this threat.
Except they really weren't. I mean, the thing about the fucking Lincoln Project and all those fucking dodgy pricks is it's all people who, at one point or another, fairly late in the game, realized that the good career move, the move that actually would keep them in office and ensure they had the right connections to retire very wealthy, was to switch sides at the last possible moment. And then you get the fucking Democrats pretending some like hideous person like Lynn Cheney is or Bob Barr is some sort of hero because like at the very last possible moment they switched over. But no, I mean that the George W. Bush Republicans. I mean George W. Bush provides the shoulders that Donald Trump stood on.
And typically the leftist characterization of the MAGA movement has been this is the ground of a neo-fascism.
A jabroni de sapupo.
To me, I don't see MAGA as inherently fascist. I don't see it as inherently communist. I don't see it as inherent. It's just American politics,
not inherently communist.
but articulated in a.
I mean, he's not wrong there. MAGA is definitely not inherently communist.
Grassroots and non-institutionalized form. So of course anti-communist ideas prevail among MAGA. Of course many other
yeah, and you're a representative of anti-communist ideas, let's be honest.
GOP and Democrat conceptions prevail.
He's wearing fucking Hugo Boss. His like scuffed ass leather jacket that he's wearing indoors like he's in a bus shelter is Hugo Boss. Like yeah, I mean, and this is the guy, he can afford that shit. This is the guy, let's remember, who said that service workers aren't part of the proletariat.
Prevail among MAGA. But the key thing is that the foundation of these ideas is no longer based in the hegemonic institutions.
But yes,
it's authentically based in what these people actually believe, and therefore it is a
wait. So when it is based in hegemonic institutions, there's nobody who authentically believes it. I don't think that's the case.
Fertile ground for the propagation of ideas, which for a long time could not be propagated because of an institutional barrier.
Like,
so then what is it? America First communism?
Well,
which is already a fucking oxymoron.
This way, Marxism-Leninism, and this is what the origin
You've already fucking Tim Pool is already way out of his depth. I mean, if you've ever played Oxygen Not Included, this is where you suddenly get this and duplicates have died of suffocation because they didn't get out of the water soon enough.
Communism with a capital C in modern times is, right? We can go into the history, but basically everyone was a social democrat or called himself a socialist before the October Revolution of 1917, which reintroduced the term communism and repopularized it. And it was Stalin who canonized this into an ideology called Marxism-Leninism. And if you...
Yes, and it managed to... I mean, Marx was kind of just on for the ride. Along for the ride. I mean, it was... You could just call it Leninism, Stalinism, and you really wouldn't lose much, because a lot of... I mean, you look at the main characteristics of it, and it's all stuff that Marx himself actually was on the record having a very low opinion of and calling Lassallean revisionism.
Read Stalin's Foundations of Leninism. He says the key contribution that Lenin introduces for Marxism is the national question. So you see with socialism in one country, which is kind of Stalin's interpretation of the construction of socialism, Marxism-Leninism is already, in the American context, MAGA. It's already America First.
That's not what the fucking national question is, though. Like, I'm not a Lenin stan, but that the national question wasn't referring to like the imperialist powers nationalist masturbation. It was about the peoples who were oppressed by those imperial powers and fucking colonized by them.
Applied to the American context. The reason there's been a confusion about...
I just want to know, like, I wish they would have kept the camera on his two interlocutors, because at this point I'm sure they're just totally fucking glazing over. I mean, we've already, like, Marxism, Lenin, this will be the first time either of them's ever heard that.
about this among leftists who call themselves communists is because they are influenced by the Trotskyist strain, or
they're just influenced by communism, actually.
the kind of CIA-funded, compatible left, as they say, type of Marxism. But Marxism-Leninism, foundationally, is patriotic and national in form.
Well, let me throw it to you, Trevor. What do you? I mean, you were talking about communist influences of the Democratic Party and things like this. So,
okay. Let's
how would you respond? What's your view of communism?
Well, my view of communism, as Has says, you know, what I see MAGA communism as is basically
yeah, I mean, the thing about the whole socialism in one country thing is, I mean, we've got the table base on this right at this point, okay? Like, if you want to, leaving aside, like, matters of preference, what you have here is what is supposed to be a strategy to get to communism. And the first test of that strategy to get to communism is, does it get to communism? Does it at least get closer to communism? Can you actually, does it, gradually move closer, or does it move away? Does it deal with the fucking, how does it handle the obvious forms in which opposition is likely to take? And the thing is, what socialism in one country has generally done, it's retreated and made compromises, and the closest it ever is to communism is at the very beginning, and it just keeps moving farther and farther away, because the only way it knows how to deal with the capitalist class is through concessions. I mean, at a certain point, you have to say, wait a second, this just isn't a way that preferences aside, there is no indication that this is capable of dealing with the sort of opposition that it canonically will always have from the capitalist class.
Americanized form of Duginism. So,
fuck, that's actually not wrong.
So this is a movement. See, there are two strands in modern American communism. There's what I would call a feminine strand, which is wokeism, which is...
Okay. The wokeism is feminine communism?
Let's just accept everybody, let's just break down the barriers, major emphasis on anti-racism.
The sort of basic underlying prerequisites to even claim to be fighting for the working class, then.
Transgenderism, all these isms, these all come out of Marxism, but it is the...
Transgenderism comes out of Marxism, you heard it here first.
Feminine side, and Has is right, there's a big Trotskyist influence there. Whereas what we're talking about here is more the masculine side of communism. This is Stalinism, Stakhanovite, I can never say the word, Stakhanovite communism. This is a masculine, nationalist form of communism.
Yeah, in other words, not. It is a not communism. It is an anti-communism. The very fact that this guy's clearly, I mean, the idea he's just being very misogynist here, and he's really sort of tipping his hand when he does that, because clearly he considers masculine to be a good thing and feminine not to be. He just the entire dismissive way he even says it. But yeah, this is, I mean, wow, the standard of debate on the Tim Poolcast never ceases to underwhelm.
Which overlaps to some degree with fascism. Dugin was basically trying to unite almost the right wing of communism with the left wing of fascism.
Oh, he was actually trying to mostly just subsume the right wing of Marxism, Leninism, like the people who were too reactionary to even be in those circles, with a bunch of the more clownish fucking Nazis that Russia had at the time. That, I mean, there's a great Andrei Rudoi, Viesnik Buri, has a video on Dugin and just what an absolute fucking bollock wipe he is. Like, I mean, not just that he is a sinister figure, but that he is a fucking comedy figure. Like, you should expect Benny Hill to be playing in the background wherever he shows up. Like, he has this doctorate that he likes to throw around, and it's from a degree mill. And somebody actually wrote an entire paper dissecting his so-called dissertation and pointing out he literally didn't know what any of the words meant and just totally
So what I'm seeing here...
But we are seeing the effect I was talking about earlier. When you have, like, multiple jabronis on opposite sides of an argument, one of them is necessarily... It's like having an infinite number of monkeys and typewriters together. One of them eventually is probably going to, you know, type Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. And so you get all these, one of them is going to have, just by just comparison, the most reasonable point.
In this MAGA communist movement is a...
I mean, fucking hell, this is like the last place that Haz would have expected to be called a Nazbol. And here's this motherfucker who's just fash saying, yeah, mate, he's basically he's one of them Nazbols.
It's something that draws on Stalinism, uses the national question, and national question means that the old original Marxism was, you know, you use the class struggle, you know, the workers will rise up and take the control of the means of production from the bosses. The nationalities question, or the national question, is where you find minority populations or...
Yeah, and this motherfucker's already got a better understanding of what the fucking national question means than Haz does.
Or racial minorities or religious minorities, and you foster a sense of revolution amongst them, and that will be patriotic.
Yeah, of course he has to find the outside agitator way of putting that out there. You foster a sense of revolution, not you approach them when they're already fucking rising up. I mean, that was the whole point, that you had these people in various, like, you know, oppressed and colonized nationalities and things like that. Who were already restive, and you say, you know, actually you probably do better just to fucking get rid of capitalism altogether. That's kind of causing your problems, and they're all but
they will play on you know, they use the like in Ireland they would use the patriotism of the Catholics against the Protestants.
No, that's not what fucking Irish republicanism was. The reason there's orange on the flag, I mean, the fucking first Irish Republicans, the founders, and, like, to this day, like, some of the most revered figures, were Ulster Prods. Fucking Theobald Wolfe Tone. I mean, his whole thing was to throw off the, sectarian bigotry that was largely fostered by British colonialism, for Catholic, Protestant, and Dissenter to come together under the shared name of Irishmen. I'm more or less quoting that accurately. No, I mean, yeah, that he's just... Thank you. Like, I was really getting uncomfortable with the fact that he had actually managed to score some reasonable points against fucking Haz, which, admittedly, easiest thing in the world to do. Absolutely not hard. But then he turns around and he manages to fuck up Irish republicanism.
The Stalinists for a long time tried to create a black republic in the south of America by using this sort of a nationalist sense amongst the black population.
I mean, that wasn't the Stalin. There was, like, specific tendencies who were suggesting that was an idea, a way to deal with the fucking, white supremacism in the U.S. was to
So
provide
they're
some
doing
sort
that
of
with
autonomy.
Native Americans now, with La Raza, this kind of thing. So what I see here, MAGA communism
Raza.
to me is an amalgamation of traditional fascism and communism.
Like, it's absolutely painful. Worst guy you've ever known has perfectly valid point. I wish they would have kept the camera. They would have done a split screen so you could see how fucking Haz is chewing on this.
Using nationalism and a strong masculine emphasis, which appeals to the young guys who
The incels.
are just sick of the feminine pansy wokeism.
Yeah.
The feminine pansy wokeism.
Both wokeism and MAGA communism come out of the same root.
all right, there's a lot of isms
In his part of the world, a root is a fuck.
here and a lot of proper names and nouns. So let's start from the beginning.
Yeah. Tim Pool doesn't like it when there's homework. Tim Pool famously went on a rant about how he doesn't know what extraterrestrial means.
Haas, do you think that the public, the workers, should own the means of production? How do we begin?
Yes, I believe in sovereign ownership of the means of production.
Wait, that's not what that's not the question. What the fuck is sovereign ownership of the means of production? Does that mean the working class owns them, or does that mean somebody else does?
So you mean like the state controls it, or what?
Of course, yes.
Your views, good sir?
I think the state should be minimally involved in the economy. The only real role of the state is in the judicial system
nothing to be sorry about.
and national defense.
What's weird is it doesn't show up. Like, sometimes I will get a thing on YouTube saying, this needs to be cleared for moderation or something like that. And I'm not getting that.
So, no, I absolutely oppose state ownership of assets. I don't like public ownership of assets. And that would be, I think, the defining difference between me and Haas is that
Well, yeah, but he isn't serious about it anyway.
he sees
This motherfucker called himself a libertarian Stalinist.
the role of a strong state, a strong, vigorous state that directs production.
A hard, vigorous state.
See exact opposite. The individual, the local, should direct production and own property.
Well, I actually believe sovereign ownership of the means of production precludes two things. One, what Lenin calls, and what Marx actually originated in his 18th Brumaire, is the smashing of the state machinery, that we cannot simply lay hold of the ready-made state that exists, the insane...
Well, then what the fuck does it... Okay, but then what the fuck is sovereign ownership of this means of production? And why are you, specifically... this motherfucker is read... he is reasonably well read. He does not always show it, but he definitely... the term workers' control is not going to be a new one. If he's chosen the word sovereign ownership, it's because he's specifically trying to avoid talking about that. Now he's like... Also, that wasn't the 18th Brumaire, that was the fucking 1872 foreword to the Communist Manifesto.
Bureaucracy that corresponds. And Marx actually talked about this to the capitalist society, but the state must be remade anew, simplified.
Well, no, what he says is, when he talks about the state, it is the working class as ruling class.
Made efficient, and
He never said shit about sovereign ownership of the means of production.
to an extent, yes, minimalized.
Hello,
because
Phoenix.
it is the aspiration of communism to basically relegate the state to its bare necessities.
Well, no, the aspiration, the whole point of communism is that there's not a state. It's a stateless, classless, moneyless society. So, it's not... You're not relegating the state, you're just fucking getting rid of it.
And for the eventual dissolution of the state, obviously, and into free association.
You're
But
saying
when
absolute idealistic communism is people all just agreeing and working together or something?
No, no. There's still a centralized oversight of production, but it's what Friedrich Engels calls the administration of things and not people. So you have a centralized oversight of production, but the necessity of the forceful suppression of opposition, for example, disappears. And this is projected to be at the time when the...
I mean, what's wild about this is that as many things as are fucked up about what he just said, it's still better than Caleb Maupin trying to talk about this stuff. Like, Caleb Maupin takes stuff that Marx and Engels later abandoned about, like, the early transitional phase on the way to communism, and takes it to the nth degree, and then treats it like that's the destination. This motherfucker, at the very least, has read enough that he knows it's not the destination.
Material foundation of the state as an organ of class dictatorship withers away. Now, many...
This country, I mean, and not just this country, makes it such a fucking ordeal to get benefits that are coming to you.
People doubt that this is possible, and it's somewhat of a theoretical and philosophical question, but as relevant now, I don't want the current American government to own more. I don't want the current American state to control more. What I want is a completely remade state, a state fashioned from the...
I wonder how many times he's going to use words that start with fash.
Ground up, based on, yes, local forms of power, amalgamated and
what the fuck are local forms of power?
Centralized to authentically represent the interests of the overwhelming majority. And this is where it may surprise you, it is a goal for the state to be minimally involved in production. Sovereign ownership of the means of production just means that foreigners, that private interests cannot gobble up.
Okay, so no foreigners. Like, so the foreigners can work on the means of production but can't own them. Okay, fash is coming through.
The resources and land of the country. But as to who manages that land and who sees to its...
ik denk wel hoor, de volgende vertalingsproject. Maar ik moet hier die vertaling nog corrigeren.
Production. This is something, ideally speaking, should be as local as possible. This is China's kind of household responsibility system.
I mean, again, he's already getting off to an interesting start there if he's including China, where they've just sort of created a capitalist class out of whole cloth because they're just such big fucking communists. And they just recently had a thing, the Communist Party of China, talking about how they need to put a clamp down on class antagonism. And it's like, yeah, but the minute you acknowledging you call yourself the fucking Communist Party, you're not supposed to be clamping down on class antagonism, you're supposed to be taking a clear fucking stance on it. But of course they don't, because I mean, they're communists, sort of like fucking MAGA communism is communist.
Which did delegate production down to the lowest level, the family level, and I think this is true to the aspiration of communism.
All right. We'll start with very simple question: what does means of production mean?
Yeah, Tim Pool is so fucking out of his depth here. And he knew these people were coming on because they had to come all the way to West fucking Virginia to his fucking compound, and he didn't bother to like look into these things beforehand. Yeah, exactly. The minute he makes it about foreigners, that really just gives the game away. Because why the fuck should the working class give a toss about the nationality of their fellow workers who are just in the same exact situation of that. I mean, that's just some administrative bullshit.
The means of production basically refer to the fundamental basis and conditions for the production of things.
That was such a clunky way of explaining. It's the things you need in order to make stuff, and the things that you make that stuff out of. That's it. That's all you need. I mean, like, is he, like, deliberately coming up with the most fucking impenetrable way of explaining this?
Material things? What about intellectual property?
No, there's no such thing in the...
He's bastardizing the term communism is, like, is so charitable. That is such a kind way of putting it. He's just wiping his hole on the term communism. He decided, I mean, that he doesn't like that Caleb Muppet is a little bit cautious about just openly declaring himself a Nazgul, and so he wanted to be more in your face about the fact that, yeah, it's fascism that pretends to be communism. I gotta do a batch of bread on Sunday.
Marxist view. Basically, I view personally intellectual property is a scam, basically. Even in terms of classical liberal values, I think it's a transgression of...
I mean, he's actually not totally wrong there. I mean, if you look at the traditional, like, classical liberal justifications for why patents and copyrights should exist, they were all about, very explicitly, all about enriching the public domain. The idea was give people, in order to just sort of incentivize creativity, you give people a temporary monopoly, very temporary, and after that it's in the public domain and everyone can use it and everyone can improve on it. And it was very explicitly to enrich the public domain. And now you actually have these fucking copyright extension laws and these patent laws that actually manage to suck stuff back out of the public domain. It's fucked.
I think it's completely illegitimate.
Intellectual property?
Yes.
So what about, so what's the incentive then for invention if you can't own what you've invented? You have to, like, hide the secrets and make sure...
We all own everything.
No one ever finds out how you did it?
I believe...
Well, why would you need to? I mean, if everybody owns everything and it's all just... And any improvement to how we produce things, any invention ends up benefiting all of us, and nobody needs any money, why do they give a fuck? But of course, that's the answer if you were talking about communism. His fake bullshit about sovereign ownership of the means of production, whatever the hell that is, will probably take a different approach to it, I think.
Credit can be given to people, and notoriety and fame and due...
Notoriety, you think?
Glory can be given to inventors and creative geniuses. But one of the things I dislike about intellectual property is that one's product should be good on the merits. If someone can simply replicate your product, I don't think this steals anything from you. I think they're just...
I mean, let's try this. If it was legal within the current system for people to take all of my content that I produce and immediately re-upload it wherever they wanted...
No, talk to XQC. He's fucking doing that. Actually, he probably wouldn't dare to do it to somebody as big as Tim Pool. But he does that to all sorts of other people. I mean, like, plenty of people have that done to them. Like, I mean, I have friends in Chile who are, like, fairly well thought, graphic satirists of some renown. And every single one of them has a story about how some major newspaper in Chile, without attributing it to them, without getting any permission, and obviously without any licensing or royalties, went and just took their work, put it and published it, cropping their signature off and claimed it as their own. I mean, that shit happens all the fucking time.
I would cease to exist overnight.
Okay, thank you for pointing out Tim Pool. Let's just repeat this.
if it was legal within the current system for people to take all of my content that I produce and immediately re-upload it wherever they wanted, I would cease to exist overnight.
Well, this is another. That is an excellent argument in favor of abolishing IP. Thank you, Tim.
So, for instance, my morning show, the Tim Pool Daily Show, I produce 4 segments per day, and they're not allowed to be taken, right? It's my opinion, my commentary. There is fair use arguments, so there's a limit to people are allowed to take it, play the video and talk over it, because it's not a...
Yeah, like I'm doing right now. Hey, Tim, fuck you. See, that...
replication of the work, it's something different. But if there was no intellectual property controls, as soon as I uploaded the video, 70 other channels would upload the exact same thing.
Why would they? Why does anyone want to upload the exact same thing? What's the exact advantage? Why would 70 channels, like, okay, I mean, I can only speak for, like, communism, not for whatever the fuck sovereign ownership of the means of production is, which seems to be, which is some bullshit. It's some fashy bullshit, but without intellectual property. But what exactly is the incentive in a system where there's no money and there's no constraint? There's no profit to be made doing this. I mean, let's leave aside the fact that there would also be no rich ghouls bankrolling assholes like Tim Pool, so that we would have to put up with, all their crap. I would actually have to do so much more original work in this, in communism, but I would also probably have more time to do it. As would a lot of people. But why would they do that? Why would 70 fucking there would be absolutely no even within the existing system, 70 channels upload Tim Pool's bullshit. At that point, you've got a huge number of channels uploading the exact same content. So they're splitting all of the SEO and all the ad revenue or whatever between each other. So who gives a shit? What's the... It
would decentralize my ability to generate ad revenue, attention, and make money, and I'd stop doing it instantly.
So for
okay, based. Absolutely. This is... that is the argument we've needed for abolishing IP.
Content creators, it is a necessity right now. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
But I think... with two things, the advances of technology and a transformation of the financial system. See, one of the reasons content creators rely on intellectual property is they need it to generate revenue.
Yeah, exactly. I hate it when he says something that I have to say exactly to, but I try to attack these assholes when they're actually wrong about stuff, and he's right there. Literally, but honestly, I wouldn't give it, for example, let's talk about IP a second, because I just finished the translation phase of the Kollontai project, and I have a non-exclusive deal to put that out in book form through Haymarket, but it will also be available as PDFs on my Patreon for free to everyone, because I already got paid on it. I mean, I'm realizing actually that I should have rethought the pricing structure a little bit, because I didn't take into account the amount of time it would take to actually do the editing and how much research it actually took in order to do the translation. And I think the next time I'm doing this, and if anyone has suggestions for a text that I might do it on that hasn't been translated already, that would be good to have translated, I would love to hear it. Let me know in the Discord. But the thing is, I don't particularly care about royalties or IP or anything like that on it, because I arranged this so I would get paid up front. Because a lot of the time, when you're putting out a translation of a book of Marxist theory, the amount of royalties you're likely to see from it is kind of limited.
Means of generating revenue for someone who's uploading your content to their channel and your channel seem to be the same, right? But with, for example, innovations in the sphere of software technologies like blockchains, there are ways to verify and authenticate the original source of...
But what does that mean?
Yeah, who gives a shit? Wait, Tim Pool doesn't understand. Like, I would have thought if there was one thing this motherfucker would have some, like, clue about, it would be, like, crypto stuff. He's all the crypto dickheads he's constantly got on here shilling for cryptocurrency. He doesn't know.
If I can't control
Right.
where how the revenue generation for a piece of content, it doesn't matter if people know it's mine.
I think it can matter because
Wait, he just refuted the concept of NFTs just now.
if we, for example, entering into the fourth industrial revolution in a kind of post commodity money economy, your
Wait, what the hell is a post-commodity money economy? Does that mean post-commodity and post-money? Does that mean post-commodity but there is money for like, just to have it, I guess? What the fuck does that mean?
acquisition of wealth could very well be tied to your signature, your blockchain signature, rather than simply...
If it's a post-commodity economy, then the acquisition of wealth isn't really a thing anymore. Because if you need something, you just go get it if it's there.
some kind of
The acquisition of wealth only makes sense within the context of the commodification of everything.
exchange of like views for dollars.
So you're saying that that signature is is intellectual property. If no matter where the content is posted, the revenue comes to me.
Well, I wouldn't say it's intellectual property because there's nothing preventing someone, for just like an NFT, for example, there's nothing preventing someone for like downloading the JPEG and doing whatever they want with it. What they can't
Yeah, exactly, which is why the whole concept is bullshit. Thank you.
do is fake the signature.
But what does that do for the?
I love this. He's managing, like, I don't know what I was expecting out of this, but Tim Pool pointing out that NFTs are bullshit was not one of the things I had on my bingo card.
Person who made it.
It gives you a signature. It confirms that it's yours. That this is
What would you say it is? You do here.
the
How does
original
it
thing.
buy my milk? Right, milk, bread, and eggs. Like, are you saying, like, would the state just give me free food? Is everyone going to get free food, or?
No, by the way, I don't.
Wait, so his fake ass communism doesn't even come with free food?
To be clear, the version of the communist system of the 20th century with rations and with standardization of basically what everyone gets based on what they do, that was a requirement for the goals of those circumstances, which was...
I mean, one thing that you get from, like, people who defect from North Korea a lot, when they talk about living in Pyongyang, or sometimes you get people who move to Pyongyang, they grew up someplace else, and then one reason or another they managed to get to move there and stuff like that. And everybody talks about the ration system like it absolutely, it is one of the selling points of going there, because suddenly your wages go way further, because you're starting with a certain amount of like rice and beer and fucking noodles and whatever a month, and that you don't have to calculate into your budget. And people are actually pretty keen on that. Like, this is people who have left the DPRK, have taken a significant risk to leave the DPRK, talk about that as one of the good things about living in Pyongyang. I mean, and I can totally see it. Like, if you had some sort of system where you would just, you might supplement that, but at the very least, you're starting out with a certain number of kilos of, garlic or fucking pasta or something like that, and you just know you've got that there. No matter what your financial situation is in a given month. I mean, there's definitely something to be said for that, actually.
The immediate modernization of the productive forces from a backward agrarian and feudal economy in a dynamic information-based economy.
Oh, wow. He's starting to sound like Newt Gingrich. Yeah, the dynamic information-based economy. Motherfucker, it's still not an information-based economy. All that's happened is that the industrial production of stuff, of like physical commodities, has been moved outside of the imperial core. And the imperial core like sells this as, oh wow, we're being so environmentally responsible now, aren't we? When the reality is all they've done is moved all this shit to fucking Indonesia and Vietnam and China and Haiti.
An increasingly decentralized consumer economy, for example, it's much more similar to China, where there isn't this kind of uniform compensation for what you do. It is measured based on some. So, for example, it can be profit. For example, is a form of the measure.
So basically, what you're saying is, MAGA communism is what we've got now, but with extra steps and like extra fasci.
Ability of how successful you are. But I think
so. Let's go back to that point then, specifically on the intellectual property question. Right. If I put up a video,
yeah, the first thing that actually matters to him is, will he still be able to make money by like bullshitting into a microphone?
That takes hours of research, and I record
hours of research.
Live, 30 minutes.
No, this motherfucker does not research anything. I mean, you could not deliberately research anything and get things as just wildly wrong as he regularly does.
And then as soon as it uploads, 100 other people re-upload it to their accounts. You're like, how do I profit from that? Are you saying that because the content is verifiably mine, any revenue generated from anyone else just comes to me?
You have to ask the question.
This is literally the only thing that he cares about in this entire discussion. Fuck everything else. Fuck how people how people get food and stuff like that. I want to know what you're doing for the content creators.
When we're entering into this new type of information economy,
I mean, obviously, the only answer to what like far right grifters like Tim Pool get in your description of a communist system is, well, I mean, we'll let you get a real job.
It's currently outdated how it works. We get revenue in dollars for something, a form of capital that I think is more worth more than money, right? Basically, I think clout is more valuable than money today.
Oh wow, really? See, let's do an experiment, House. Send me your money, and you can live off the clout. Like, yeah, go down to your supermarket, buy your fucking muscle supplement, puke powder stuff that whatever it is. You just give them some clout.
I don't know if you agree.
But it is. But how do you eat? Right? You need.
Well, you use clout. You say you go up. You go to the greengrocer's. It's like, I'm famous on the internet. I want a turnip. And they're like, oh, how famous? Well, I once worked with Caleb Maupin. Oh, okay, well, you can get half a turnip for that, but I'm going to need $5 for the rest of it.
Need money to buy food.
Yeah, that would be a question of I mean, we want to innovate everything. We're basically talking about a fourth industrial revolution. So we must also think about how to innovate the entire financial system, how money works, how
well, maybe just have it not.
Currency works, and so on and so on. And I do think that would be connected with things like blockchain technologies.
But I'm just not. I'm not sure I understand. Right.
And unlike many times when he isn't sure he understands, that's because what this motherfucker is saying makes absolutely no sense. God, is he gonna start screaming at people at some point?
If you don't believe in intellectual property,
yeah,
a signature that I guess I'm trying to wonder, how would I make money? I don't think you've answered it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. You wouldn't, Tim. No, because nobody would pay for this bullshit.
how do I make money in a situation where I
think
own the
how it
content I
would
produce?
work is that if you have an enterprise, and by the way, enterprise is not a dirty word. There were Soviet enterprises. You will be a
I did not realize that anyone thought enterprise was a dirty word. I mean, I don't, they don't bleep it on Star Trek.
compensated with resources necessary for what you need to do based on your performance.
So resources.
So
Is that money?
if you're successful
Well,
at
based on his performance, Tim's already. Tim, you're just gonna need to retrain as like something. Because if this is performance based, motherfucker, I hate to tell you, but you're not gonna
reaching
do
people
well.
based on your content, then you will be compensated with some kind of, you could call it money, you could call it, Marx theorized about labor vouchers, you can talk about tokens.
Labor vouchers is effectively currency with a restricted currency.
Yeah, it can be called whatever, but yes, effectively, you can be compensated with some kind of means of acquiring more based on what you put in.
Money.
Yeah, but I mean, again, that still raises the question: how is Tim Pool gonna eat? Because he contributes nothing.
Sure, you can call it that. I think the one.
So then, if the signature.
Yeah, I mean, is this? I can see where this is going. Where Tim Pool eventually says, "So what you're saying is, in your system, people will do work and they will get paid money for it." So it sounds like your system is basically what we already have, and House has to say, "Yeah, I guess so," but it's fascier.
Only applies to me personally. That means I own that signature and have ownership of the content that I produce, because if it's reposted anywhere, but it all reverts to my signature.
Like,
and
I would say any communist system where Tim Pool can make money doing what Tim Pool does, where like that in itself is somehow rewarded above the odds, it is not a communist system. Like, there's something fundamentally wrong if you can just sort of make fash bullshit and live off of it.
compensates me, that means I own the intellectual property.
Right, but this is a form of effective ownership. It's not a form of ownership in.
What is that? That pronunciation is a bit odd. Is he saying affective ownership? Like you have sort of like sentimental value in it? You're sentimentally invested in it? Oh, was that effective and he just sort of swallowed the E?
Forced by a third party. It's a form of ownership that is self-evident in the product. So, for example,
but who cares?
I own my personality. I don't need
nobody wants to claim it has. Don't worry.
To have the government say, this is Hawes's personality, no one else can have it.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't, because why would anyone want it?
As an original person, it's a form of effective.
What if someone takes the content, inverts the colors, generating a
I mean, these
key,
motherfuckers,
then...
it says everything. I mean, remember, Has went on a whole fucking thing. Went on a whole big thing a few months ago about how baristas are not workers. And here he is, talking with Tim Pool about how they can have IP through the back door if you call it something a little bit different and throw in the fucking croc chain. I mean, yeah, I mean, this is such a relevant discussion for the proletariat to be having.
Directs the key to themselves to generate revenue.
If,
would there be an adjudicating force?
I think unfortunately, I do believe in a harshness of reality where if this is what people prefer and they like it better, you have to step up your game. You know.
So right. So the issue is in a reality where someone can.
So I mean, again, every single time he gets into brass tacks, he's just talking about what we already have.
Spoof a key.
He's not even like dressing it up much.
or alter the content in such a way that it's not transformative, doesn't fall under fair use. Like they're literally just trying to repurpose the existing content.
Why would they
Let's
do
just put it
that?
this way. They find a way to bypass the blockchain signature by like, I don't know, dropping the
By right-clicking and saving as.
pitch by a half step or altering the colors, and then they start getting the money from it. I cease
Yeah.
to exist overnight. This content doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, this is a wonderful side benefit.
Again, perhaps under the current circumstances, that's the case for all content creators, but I think we should be a little more appreciative of the possibility that in the future things will not work the same way as they do
Yeah, except you haven't exactly provided an example of that.
now.
Trevor, do you want to jump in on this communism?
Well, I think this is the main mistake of Marxism. They assume that human
What? You can okay, motherfucker. I can accept many things. I will not accept that that discussion just now can be laid at the door of Marxism. I'm not a Marxist. I have my disagreements with Marxism, although I also have a significant appreciation for Marx's work. But you can't blame Marxism on that shit.
consciousness is shaped by the material environment.
Well, actually, I think we've seen a pretty good example of it, because both of these motherfuckers can't even seem to think about this in any terms other than ensuring that that whatever the system is, it will be a system that allows them to grift by talking into a microphone.
So if we can change the material environment, if we can have new technology, human behavior is going to change. Human incentives are going to change.
But which is true. I mean, that's literally how we got into capitalism in the first place.
I think that's complete fallacy. You know, intellectual property is
What the fuck is this thing next to him, by the way?
what drove the Industrial Revolution. It wasn't the cotton gin, it wasn't the steam engine, it was patents.
That's not true, though. Actually, I mean, if you look, it's particularly ridiculous if you know how Britain's textile industry really got started. Because what they did was reverse engineer stuff that they were already doing in India, and then they banned people in India using the technology that they fucking developed. I mean, literally, if you had patent laws, IP laws, like the ones we have right now, Britain would never have gotten off the ground in shipbuilding or textiles, the two things that made the British Empire possible. Like, the intellectual property laws, first of all, they didn't yet call it intellectual property. But like the patent and copyright laws at this time were very, very limited. I mean, nothing like what you get now. And very limited in like geographical scope as well. It wasn't like there wasn't a World Intellectual Property Organization. You could have a patent in Britain and nobody gave a shit about it in Germany, in France or whatever. And no, so I mean, what he's saying is just nonsense. And I mean, it's also nonsense in the context of his argument, because even if we grant that actually what made the industrial revolution happen was IP laws that wouldn't exist for like 150 years, in the form that he's thinking of them, then that is already a shift in material conditions that shifts incentives and therefore affects behavior, which is what he just said was nonsense.
It was the banking system. It was the derivatives, the stock market, that all these things that were driven by intellectual property.
No, they weren't driven by like intellectual property. Like, the only reason the share market meant anything was because there was actual production happening. You were buying a share in the production of an actual facility that was producing actual stuff that they would sell for actual money.
Property rights that were not just,
I am so... I hope you get them. I wish there was more I could do. I wish there was more that I could do to help to... But, God, I mean, it is just an absolutely shitty time. And I mean, but I mean, obviously the real victims in all of this are the content creators who hypothetically have to worry about whether they would be able to grift on the internet if the means of production were collectively owned. I mean, those are we all have to just sympathize with like Tim Pool and fucking House over that. I mean, not our little fucking mundane struggles about like literally just not having any fucking income. I really hope. Do you have like any kind of representation, any kind of assistance in this process?
A book or a machine
'Cause there
or
might be people who would be able to help you for free with that.
a, or a forest or whatever, they were actually intellectual property.
A forest is not intellectual property. It is property.
Now, so in the future, human nature is not going to change. Human nature's been human nature forever.
Humans have not been forever.
Humans respond to personal incentive. That's how
You just said that they don't. Like, get it straight. Does people's behavior shift depending on the incentives that exist in a given social context? Or is it intellectual property which somehow, I mean, God, this is I thought Haz and Tim Pool were incoherent. This motherfucker is really just outdoing them in the world in the incoherent sweepstakes. Can they recommend a lawyer who could help you with the state benefits? I mean, maybe they know somebody who does state stuff.
we're programmed to be. And the problem is
I mean, a lot of states, there'll be like some sort of non-profit legal defense, legal aid corporation or something like that. I mean, they're often not necessarily great, but there might be some representation available for it anyway.
whenever that the communists will say, well, we're going to change the material form of existence, and that's going to change the nature of man.
I know that isn't actually what. It's not about changing human nature. The point is that human nature is literally anything that a human being does falls within human nature. If your definition of human nature does not account for every single thing a human has ever done or ever will do or could even think of doing at some point, then you don't have an account of human nature. Human nature is just such a fucking lazy ass thing, because they'll be like, oh, that goes against human nature. Well, that's weird because I'm doing it right now. Clearly, was my nature not human? Like, what species am I?
And we're going to we can have a cooperative environment, we can have incentives that aren't directly monetary, all this kind of thing. It's all untrue. Nothing will change about human nature.
Yeah, capitalism, which has existed on the outside about 300 years, that is the true expression of human nature, which is why it took over 20,000 years of human development to even have capitalism.
Nothing at all.
I agree.
So you design a system of liberty where human nature can blossom, where people can build their own farm, they can build their own business, they can build
if they can afford those things,
their own.
they can exploit their own workers, they can generate their own surplus value, start their own imperialist wars over their own mom and pop resources.
Podcast, it's theirs. They control it. See, if you have some, as Haz was talking about, you'll be compensated if your stuff is good. Well, who decides that?
Well, I mean, he actually said that it basically the same people decided as decide it now. And of course, the thing is that what's all bullshit about all of this is that neither of these people's stuff is good. And they are doing way better off of their not very good, like, just complete grifting bullshit, shitberg bullshit. That was that was not a good swear chain. I ended up repeating a link in it. But yeah, grifting bullshit, shitberg bullshit. Yeah, I mean, I repeated a link in like multiple sublinks as well. Not good. Need to work on that. But like, plenty of people make, qualitatively better content in every imaginable way, and are nowhere near being able to live on it the way these motherfuckers can.
It's going to be a collective that decides that. Back in the Soviet Union,
the Kiwi is a guy called Trevor Loudon. He's a fascist from New Zealand who now lives in the U.S.
Stalin, they had the Writers Guild, the Writers Collective. And there were certain writers who were favored by the Soviet state that lived quite comfortably. They got...
Oh, wow. You're saying that there were writers who were favored by the system and those writers were more widely published and lived better? I wonder what that's like. Like, as a writer who isn't favored by the regime and therefore is largely unknown despite actually being really fucking good. I mean, I don't know if you read... My Patreon isn't just for, like, giving me money, though. I mean, I don't mind that at all. There's all sorts of stuff I've written on it, because I'm actually a fucking good writer. I'm much better at that than talking off the cuff into a microphone, I have to say.
Got royalties from their poetry, they got royalties from their plays, but only if you conformed to the state.
Yeah, as opposed to here where it's so free because you have to conform to the publishers and the social media platforms. And I don't know if you all heard, but Polly People, that reminds me, great segue here. She got permabanned from Twitch over some complete bullshit. Just complete bullshit. And now she's streaming over on YouTube. So I'm just going to drop that link there. If I can find it. No, Polly with 2 L's. Otherwise you get Polly People. So give her a like. Give her a subscribe. She's trying to like rebuild her fucking presence after having it just without any warning just permanently wiped out by Twitch for absolutely
if you
no
were
reason.
a dissident in any way, you either risk jail or you lost your position. You lost your privileged position.
Yeah, you mean sort of like how all of these like celebrities and academics are losing their jobs because they took a stand against the genocide in Gaza? You mean sort of like that?
So this is the beauty of freedom. You can come out with an idea or a product and the state cannot interfere with you. But if you have any form of collectivism where people can decide what you do, how you think, whether your product or service is valuable, whether you're...
Well, people do decide whether your product... I mean, either way, you've got people deciding whether your product or service is valuable. It's just a question of who's the one deciding.
Ideas are false or true. If other people can decide that other than your customers, it is only going to be those who curry favor with the establishment or the existing social order that are going to prosper.
Yeah, motherfucker, I mean, you're here as a defender of the status quo, though, so, I mean, what's your problem?
Freedom gives people the freedom to be stupid, to be creative.
Well, I mean, we're definitely seeing some of these freedoms exercised here. And with that, it is time for me to start wrapping up. Thank you to everyone who joined. It is always just so nice to see you all. I wanted to tell you about sort of an idea I kind of had today on the language stream, which is between 4:30 and 7 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. I was watching this guy, Days and Words, who has some, I would have to say, sound ideas on language acquisition. He did a thing on, like, how to become somewhat fluent in a language in 40 days. And I have to say, unlike most of these things, like, his idea of how to do this is serious. It is actually based in legit ideas about how language acquisition works. And so I'm sitting here thinking, as sort of like a fundraising reward on my Patreon or whatever, if it got up to it involves basically you have to just not do anything else really other than eat and sleep for 40 straight days. And so I'm sitting here thinking, if I got my Patreon up to a certain level, I think I might do that, and then, like, do like a video diary of how well it worked and stuff. Yeah, I mean, see, the thing is, I don't think that fail suggests an intent. I don't think any of these pricks actually seriously intends to argue against capitalism. I don't think that they're actually capable of seeing anything beyond capitalism. I mean, the way Has talks, the way obviously these other two chuds, they certainly don't. They can't see anything beyond capitalism. They don't want to. Actually, I mean, Has is there wearing fucking Hugo Boss and talking about how baristas aren't real workers or whatever. That's somebody who's doing okay in the current system, actually, and probably would not do as well by their standards else in a halfway decent system. But in any case, I just want to say, Phoenix, good luck. I hope that all the that this struggle over benefits, that you manage that. And if you need to let me just say again, if you need to post that GoFundMe, the GoFundMe links and stuff in the Discord or whatever, obviously you're always welcome to do that. I would contribute myself, but I'm actually not in great shape myself at the moment. But if that changes, I would certainly be happy to do so. And I hope you get that ironed out. I know what it is like to fight over that stuff. I've helped people do it in the past in other places, and I've known people who have spent sometimes years fighting over SSI. It's an absolute horrible situation, and I just hope you manage to get it resolved more or less in your favor. Have a good night, and I will see you all tomorrow night. And if you're looking for some reading material, you can find it on my Patreon, in addition to being a place where you can support the stream if you feel, if you're able to do it and you feel like doing it. And if you're not, then absolutely, I would never want anyone to feel bad if they for not being able to, because I mean, I feel bad enough constantly about all the things I'm not able to support at the moment. So, but in any case, there's all sorts of reading material there. It's my writing and stuff as well. So go ahead and, just check that out if you're looking for something to read tonight. Have a good night, and see you tomorrow.